Hunterdon Regional Board of Education is called to order. Adequate notice as required by the Open Public Meetings Act was provided on December 5th, 2025 by posting the notice with the respective clerks of the City of Lambertville, Borough of Stockton, and Township of West Ammo, and advertised on December 5th in the Star Ledger and Trenton Times newspaper. Would you please join me for the flags?
To the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, shall we call the roll?
Jennifer Bachelor.
Here.
John Bonani.
Here.
Martha Dennis.
Here.
Paul Baldigno.
Here.
Gina Bichetti.
Here.
Brian Keys.
Here.
Aaron O'Leary. Ronnie Codmarino.
Here.
And Michael Stroud.
Here. Okay, we are going to start with our student representative. So that.
All right, so I'll hit you guys with my update for the past month about. So of course, we've been doing well athletically, academically, socially. We've had a lot of fundraisers and different things going on. Athletically, softball, baseball, obviously they're in full swing now. We recently had the pink out game, so really great. They have their senior nights coming up, and just last week reps from like each team, golf, baseball, and softball went up to North Hunterdon. They had a little convention with a motivational speaker and talk to some of like people in their respective teams. Academically, obviously sophomore, junior, seniors all getting ready for the AP exams. They're coming up this next week and then in the next weeks. Just like the past month, this month the peer leaders ran another thing. Obviously last week was Take Your Kid to Work Day, so peer leaders ran activities for all the little ones. Key Club has been working hard, planning field trips, other appreciation activities that we've been working on. I'm not sure if everybody knows about them yet. Coming up this next Wednesday and Friday, there are some things going on within the arts. There's the teen art kind of I don't know, not festival, but at the library they're doing a presentation for the teen arts, and then on Friday they're going to TCNJ and they're kind of getting to work with some of the choir there, which is cool. Overall, I think everybody's doing really well and kind of wrapping up for the end of the year.
We also this evening have a special recognition. So the board is going to be passing a resolution in just a minute. But we'd like to welcome Ms. Louie to present first.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation for this evening. This is Martina Martinez-Pablo. We are proud to honor Martina as our 2026 South Hunterdon Unsung Hero. Martina has consistently demonstrated a strong work ethic in her academics, applying herself diligently to earn her grades. Beyond her studies, she's a kind and courteous individual whose positive attitude fosters a welcoming environment among her peers and teachers alike. This year, our preschool program at South Hunterdon Regional Elementary School has had the pleasure of hosting Martina as our dedicated student intern through the Hunterdon County Polytech program. Currently in her second year of the Principles of Teaching program, she's shown tremendous growth, professionalism, and initiative in our preschool classrooms. Throughout her internship, Martina has actively supported daily routines, assisted with small group instruction, and engaged warmly with our youngest learners. Martina consistently demonstrates patience, enthusiasm, and a genuine interest in early childhood education. She has developed strong relationships with both students and staff and continues to model developmentally appropriate practices, support social emotional learning, and help maintain a positive classroom environment. She has recently expressed an interest in exploring ESL services within the elementary school and is now working alongside a colleague in our kindergarten and first grade classrooms to broaden her experience. We are grateful for her contributions to our programs and appreciate the energy, creativity, and support she has brought to our classrooms. As a former student of our building, that's the South Hunterdon Regional Elementary School, the teaching staff has been especially impressed by her maturity, her growth, and professionalism. And they share that it's been a joy having her back at Stress. But this time as an aspiring educator. Here at the high school, Mr. Peterson, Martina's soccer coach, shared that he has had the privilege of witnessing her growth both in and out, both on and off the field. She has proven herself to be persistent and dedicated, overcoming numerous barriers to attend practices and making the most of every opportunity to improve. Her commitment is evident not only in her presence, but in the effort she puts forth once she arrives, always working to her full potential, modeling perseverance, and encouraging those around her. This dedication translates into all areas of her life, reflecting her ability to set goals and achieve them through hard work and resilience. We are proud to honor Martina as South's unsung hero, as we are sure that she will bring the same level of determination, kindness, and growth mindset to the world beyond our walls. She is a student who leads by example, and we believe she will continue to do so in the future. Congratulations. Thank you.
Martina, we will be passing a resolution to that effect just now. It is written as, whereas the South Hunterdon Regional School District School Board of Education hereby recognizes Martina Martinez Pablo for receiving the Hunterdon County School Board Association Unsung Hero Award on March 4th, 2026. And whereas the Hunterdon County School Board Association, in collaboration with New Jersey School Boards Association, recognizes unsung heroes from each high school in Hunterdon County. And whereas the Unsung Hero Award honors students who make outstanding contributions to their schools and communities, but are often overlooked by other traditional student recognition programs. These students have overcome difficult academic and personal challenges, modeled good citizenship, and a spirit of quiet strength that have inspired others. These unsung heroes may have organized community nonprofits, selflessly supported others, or achieved academic success despite disabilities, language barriers, or other significant challenges. And whereas Martina Martinez Pablo has overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles to reach their full potential, has served the school community and the community at large, and stands as a beacon to inspire others. And now therefore be it resolved that the South Hunterdon Regional School District Board of Education recognizes Martina Martinez Pablo as an unsung hero of Hunterdon County and the South Hunterdon Regional School District. And be it further resolved that this resolution is presented to Martina Martinez Pablo as a sincere token of the South Hunterdon Regional School District's Board of Education's congratulations and best wishes for continued success. I hope you take that last sentence beyond anything else. So thank you very much. Can I get a motion to pass this resolution? Okay, Ronnie first and second by Jen. Voice vote on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We have a representative from the PTO now. First, Ms. Hardigan, congratulations. We had the honor of going to the Hunterdon County Education Association this weekend, where Ms. Hardigan was also an award recipient, and thank you for representing our district so well.
Jessica Hardigan. I almost said West. Sorry. PTO. So we'll start off with yearbooks. We've hit our quota for South Elementary, but please order your yearbooks. Anyone who wants one, or spread the word if you're a staff member. There's still quite a few families that normally purchase a yearbook that are not on the list, so please do so. We will have very limited extra copies. So yes, and all of those announcements have gone out via Parent Square, so hopefully we'll do a final push with room parents and get them sent out again. Our next Kids Night Out will be held Friday, May 15th. And our final Kids Night Out will take place Friday, June 5th. Registration for both events is live on Membership Toolkit. I opened them today. And they will be going out by the end of the week on Parent Square. South Elementary Field Day is scheduled for Friday, May 29th. We had initially advertised it as Thursday. That has been changed. The rain date will now be Thursday, May 28th. We got 2 really fun inflatables, one for our kindergartners and our first graders, and one more appealing to the older kids. Lunch has been donated by ShopRite in Flemington. The Lambertville Fire Department will be grilling for both staff and students again, and the Bishes will be there with their snow cone truck. Staff Appreciation Week is coming up. It's May 4th through May 8th. All of the sign-up links for all 3 schools have been shared via Parent Square. The sign-up genius for the elementary school is doing really well. We do need some support at the middle school and the high school level. So if you've seen those and your family is able to, please donate. It really does help offset costs for us, and we're able to put the money other places. We'll be following a similar theme that we have in past years, breakfast, snack day, luncheon for the elementary school and the middle school. And then the high school likes to do their own thing with a snack day and a coffee bar. And we will purchase lunch for our staff members. The PTO is also supporting the middle school art and STEM show by providing popcorn machine and supplies. The Bachelor family is letting us use their cotton candy machine, which we've gotten a lot of use out of that. And we will donate the supplies for the cotton candy machine and decorations. And that is Thursday, May 14th, I believe. So please come out and support it and get a sweet treat. Next week marks the final week of after-school enrichment clubs for the spring semester. Thank you to everyone who has supported these programs. We'll be actually sending out a brief survey to families in the elementary school. We're hoping to do so in the next week or 2. We just kind of want to gauge where people are at, what programs we could be offering, what we're not offering, what people would like to see, and more importantly, cost-wise. I'm not a professional after-school enrichment program runner, so gauging where we are with cost, we're at a very comfortable spot, but I'm hoping that we are able to work some numbers and lower it and make it more accessible to more families. So if you see the survey, please try and fill it out and give us some feedback, even if your children don't partake in the program, or if you're a staff member, we would like to hear from you. And then our pre-K through 4 touch truck event is scheduled for June 5th. We have a great lineup of vehicles, thanks to our volunteers who organize that with the city and local vendors. And the PTO will be providing popsicles when students return back to school. Our middle school pretzel sales have been very, very interesting. The kids absolutely love them. The first one, we didn't order enough. The second one, we ordered too many. So hopefully this one on Friday, we've hit our sweet spot. So it'll be this Friday with the final sale on May 29th. Students, if you're not aware, they get, upon dismissal, they come down and they grab a pretzel, and then they head off to whatever their dismissal procedure is. And then lastly, I'd like to take a moment just to thank my incredible team that I work with. I have the privilege of working with some pretty amazing people, and everything that we accomplish for the students in the district is a result of strong teamwork with my team and with administration and staff and all of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Do we have anyone from the LAEF? Okay. We have received several items of correspondence from a resident this month, and we are acknowledging them here. Okay,
Yeah, so I do want to just acknowledge a few things in reference to the correspondence that I prepared. So the referendum was submitted to the Department of Education in June of 2021, and it was approved by the department in August of 2021. It was then voted on and approved by our community on November 2nd, 2021. The projects did not go out to bid until March of 2023 due to litigation delays. Between 2021 and the time our projects went out to bid in 2023, it's estimated that the cost of construction rose approximately 25 to 35% per square foot nationwide. This was not unique to our district, as it was a market-wide condition that impacted school districts and public projects across New Jersey and our country. It's important to understand that the referendum estimates are based on projected costs at a point in time. Because public school projects follow a deliberate process that includes design, state review, and bidding, there's always a gap between voter approval and construction. During this period, market conditions can, and in this case did, change substantially. Throughout the entire referendum process, from our initial planning and design through construction and final expenditures, the district operated with multiple layers of professional oversight. This included a construction attorney, bond counsel, and an auditor to ensure that all actions were compliant and aligned with legal and financial requirements. In addition, the district undergoes a comprehensive annual audit conducted by an independent auditing firm. This review includes a detailed examination of all district expenditures, including referendum funds, and is conducted over a full week each year. These audits have consistently affirmed that our financial practices are sound and appropriate. Last month, I publicly presented a detailed referendum cost analysis, which was shared with the community and remains available for review on board docs. This information provides full transparency into how funds were allocated and spent, along with the total cost of the projects. It's also important to note that in many school district projects, costs exceed original estimates due to the conditions that I've already described. There are established and lawful mechanisms to address those differences. The district has utilized such mechanisms appropriately and with all regulatory guidelines. At this point, the referendum has been successfully completed. Our buildings have been renovated and constructed as planned, and the district reconfiguration is in place. The focus should now be on supporting our student, staff, and community as we move forward. It's time to move on.
thank you, Mr. Suzo. As we move through, I get a motion to approve minutes from our last meeting. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We now have a meeting within the meeting. So we are going to be conducting a public hearing on the budget. So I need a motion to enter that public hearing now.
So moved.
Okay, Martha and Jen. All in favor? Aye. Presentation of the
Yes,
budget.
thank you. So for those of you that have been, coming the last month or so, obviously this has been a long process, an extremely challenging process this year with many of the things that we'll talk about in the slide deck for all school districts across the state of New Jersey. But before I start, I do want to just thank the board because this process started many months ago. Committee meetings involved, a lot of nuances throughout this process, a lot of patience by the board as we waited for state funding numbers and things along those lines. So I do credit the board and thank them for all the time and effort they put in, to getting us to this point where we're actually presenting our public budget for next year. So there's always, the foundational pieces that build a budget, right? We have our mission statement. Just as those of you who may have participated in our strategic planning, this is something that we looked at, something that we had in place and made the decision to keep it because we felt it met our needs based on our district. So this is always a driving force, right, behind our budget as we look at our mission statement and how our different funds are allocated. These are just our district goals from this year that we had. You'll hear more about this probably in our May meeting as we report out for the year, but you know, we always are focusing on obviously academic achievement with our students. We'll be implementing next year a process that we've been planning for all year, a new character education program called Character Strong in K-8. Our community classroom program has been a huge success, in my opinion, this year. And actually, in May, we are going to be inviting all of our folks who have participated from the community in that project to kind of recognize them at our May meeting. And it's a long list. So I'm really excited. I'll just full disclosure, I think it went even better than I originally thought it would for year one, with the amount of teachers. And I thank our staff for that because they really engaged the process and were invested in the process. So I'm excited to present that at our next meeting. We'll have the opportunity to really, recognize those individuals, and moving forward, they are going to play a huge role, especially with our Pathways program that we'll be launching at the high school next year. And that leads us into goal 4. So, on the agenda this evening, we actually have a recommendation for a Pathways coordinator for our new program that we'll be implementing for a new 9th grade experience for our students. There's still work to be done, but the foundation is laid, and we're really excited about kicking that off and continuing that next year. So really, a budget is a planning tool for what we value. We look at, obviously, our mission statement. We want to make sure that we use it and we're as fiscally as responsible as we can be. Obviously, that was a challenge this year with school districts across the state of New Jersey. And you all know by now, if you've been following along with health benefit premiums and how that's all played out, along with all the other increased costs that we're dealing with, like energy and things along those lines. It is a planning tool, right? It's something that we got to utilize to mitigate risk, possible risk of things that could happen during the school year, and manage that risk. That's all part of it. It's really important, and this board, since the time I've come here, has always stressed opportunities for all of our kids. What does that look like? From inside the classroom, as well as extracurricular and co-curricular activities. And I think we've come a long way with that in a variety of different ways in order to accomplish that. Developing the whole child, right? So not just about the academic achievement, but the social emotional, and making sure that when our students leave us after 12th grade, that they'll be productive members of society. And then developing our staff, right? And making sure that they have what they need in order to do what they do on a daily basis for our kids. Long-term planning for academics, which I think we spent a good deal of time this year really focusing on the high school as part of one of our goals. Long-term planning for staff, as staff retirements and things change over, and making sure that we're planning for that. And obviously, with just finishing the referendum, we're in really great shape as far as the elementary and the middle school with facility planning. And now our focus really is on the high school, right? And that's part of our capital budget, which you'll hear about tonight. So as I mentioned, it was a long process. We really started this process internally back in October, where we started to work with our administrative team on developing the budget and beginning initial budget discussions. There were meetings with myself and Dr. Luchko as we developed with each one of our principals and administrators on our team. We had to, administrators had to submit before our winter break their final budgets to Dr. Luchko before that time. And then we had to do a county review. So if you're not aware, all school districts are required to do about a 2-hour review where the county, we meet with the county superintendent and the county BA, business administrator, and they ask a lot of questions and go through our budget and look at the history and kind of where we're projecting. So we did that back in December. Then as soon as we got back from winter break, we're really digging into it even more. We started working with the finance committee in February and then continued that process in March with our finance committee. We waited for our governor's address, which obviously was a little bit later this year than normal because it was a new governor, which came out March 10th. State aid figures were released on March 12th. We did a budget work session that evening now that we had our state aid figures. The board approved at our March 23rd meeting a preliminary budget, which we submitted to the county superintendent, and the county superintendent approved that budget on April 2nd. And now we're here for the public hearing and the adoption of the final budget. So just terminology, school budget terminology can be a bit confusing. So just so everyone's aware of the terminology and what we use when we develop our budget, So we have our general fund, that's our operating budget. That's basically the budget that we use to pay for everything that happens day to day. You know, salaries, benefits, transportation, facilities, whatever it may be. Those are all our instructional programs. Those are all the things that happen day to day, and we use our general fund. The tax levy is the amount of money that we raise within the community as far as our taxpayers to supplement our budget. We know in the state of New Jersey that the majority of municipalities fund school programming, right? We don't get a ton of money from the federal government. We get some money from the state, but the majority of it's funded through local tax share. Debt service is really our mortgage. So at this point, we had the 2021 referendum. I'll be sharing in a slide later on. Good news that our last debt payment for the old referendum debt for the West Amwell School was made in February of 26, and that will have a positive impact on our budget and the implications for our taxpayers moving forward starting in July. And then we also have fund balance and surplus. So basically, when we go through a budget, if we have any money left over at the end of the year after we have our audit, which usually takes place in August and September, it's determined to be a surplus or a fund balance. And depending upon how much money that is, typically there's one or two things that happen with that. We can use a percentage of it into a future budget, right, the following year. And then the remainder of it typically is deposited and moved into our capital reserve account, because that is where we do our projects down the road. If we're going to do things like roofs or paving or HVAC or whatever that may be, it all comes out of our capital reserve. So that's typically how that process works out. And you'll see as I get into specifics how much fund balance we're using for the 26-27 budget. Bank cap. So this can be sometimes a little bit of a confusing topic. So it's not actual money, it's spending authority. So each and every year, right, there's a 2% cap. Sometimes there's waivers that are built in. We're going to talk a lot about that tonight, specifically for health benefit increases. They're above and beyond normally what they would be. So it can increase the board's spending authority. If the board does not utilize all their spending authority, it maintains that authority for a period of 3 years before it expires. So you can see by this breakdown here, how much cap or how much bank cap we have from the last 3 years. And we do have some money that will be expiring at the end of this year to $99,038. And we will obviously, this year for the 26-27 budget that we'll be hopefully adopting this evening, we'll have bank cap left over because the board is not utilizing their entire spending authority. Capital reserve, as I mentioned, this is really for our capital projects. This is something that we plan for, and you'll see I have a slide of exactly what we're focusing on for our capital reserve projects for the 26-27 school year. Equalization rate, this is an important one because it's determined by the county, not by the school district. And this is basically the percentage share for each one of our municipalities. So I do have a slide that shows that information. That is something we get from the county each and every year. And it shows how much each municipality is contributing towards our budget. And then health benefit adjustment is a really important term for this year. So if we have a significant increase in health benefit premiums, which we do, and which all districts in the state of New Jersey do, there is the ability to go over the normal 2% cap because of those large increases without going out to an actual budget vote. So we'll talk a little bit about what that means and kind of where we landed with our health benefit renewals and the amount of spending authority it's presenting to the board. So this is just a reality throughout the state of New Jersey right now. So basically everyone experienced extreme rising costs with healthcare. Some districts as much as 35%. For our district, healthcare expenses went up to 18%. Last year, they were 11%. So when you start talking about 18% health benefit increases, what our contractual settlements are as far as percentages and raises, plus heating and oil, which we all know what's happening with that right now, and all our other operational expenses, it creates some challenges, right? Maintaining a 2% tax levy in this environment with all these increases is just not feasible for anyone. And that's why when you see the information I'm going to share where districts are landing, no one's near that number because of all these issues that we're confronted with. We've gone through this budget with a fine-tooth comb. The entire board has gone through line by line. The finance committee has spent months looking at every possible way that we could save money the best we possibly can and reduce the impact on the taxpayer. So again, like I said, this is not something that we took lightly. It's something we've spent months on to try to get to where we are today. So as we know, we're in the people business, right? And a lot of our costs are fixed costs that evolve from staffing and benefits. We also have special education programs and services, and depending upon situations with special education, that can be unpredictable. And it can even be volatile sometimes. We could have a student who moves into the district that we didn't know about when we planned our budget that has needs that perhaps we can't meet. And that's something that we have to pay for that we didn't plan. And that could be sometimes $100, $200, or $300,000 for one particular student. So that can be a challenge. We have our extracurricular and co-curricular activities. We have our maintenance and our operations. We have our transportation. We have ratables in each one of our communities, which obviously we don't control, but that can impact where we are. And then state aid on a yearly basis. We were fortunate that we did get an increase in state aid this year, which helped our budget process. And as I mentioned before, 80% of our salaries and benefits are fixed costs. So when we look at the budget and we roll it over from one year to the next, 80% of it is already fixed, right? That we can't control or we can't change. The other 20% is where we got to make the magic happen in order to be able to make this all work, which is a challenging process. So expenditures, staff salaries, benefits, our classroom supplies, program supplies for all of our different content areas, special education I mentioned, our technology that we have, textbooks, all the clubs and the activities and athletics, custodial maintenance. Then along with that, we have all of our utilities, which we're going to talk about tonight, insurance for all of our buildings, workers' comp insurance, grounds, maintenance, curriculum and instruction, our professional development for our teaching staff, our curriculum writing, and any new curriculum that we want to implement. We have our transportation costs, and then we have the Polytech tuition, which we've talked about in the past. So you know we have to pay when students go to Polytech, which is our vocational program. Right now, I actually asked Peter this morning, so for next year, for our part-time students, the tuition is a little bit over $5,200. So that's for a student who goes during the junior and senior year, half the day and comes back. And the tuition for a full-time student, so someone who's going to enter into one of their academies starting in 9th grade, is over $10,000 per year. I think it's 10,000 and change per year, right? So that is a significant cost. It's one of the reasons why we started the school performing arts next year, so we can try to help offset that. But that is something that all school districts in Hunterdon County are dealing with right now, that tuition amount. So our revenues, as I mentioned, for our operating budget for 26-27, we do get state aid. That's going to account for about 13.5% of our budget. We only get about 1% from the federal government for our budget, and then 82.1% comes from our local taxpayers. Preschool expansion aid. So you can see the number that we received. Keep in mind, I think we're now in year 5 of preschool. Preschool expansion aid started 5 years ago that pays for our preschool program. We have a full day preschool program, and we have 5 sections of that can accommodate up to 75 of our preschoolers. I'm happy to say that all of our preschoolers have seats. Any preschooler who wants to come to our district has a seat available, which is not the case of many other districts where they continue to do lotteries and trying to get all their kids in, but they just don't have the space. We also have the school choice program where we have 97 choice seats, and that generates almost $2 million in revenue. I've spoken about this a lot. I will continue to kind of preach that without our school choice funding, we would have a significant hole in our budget, right? We would not be able to just eliminate staff. And I think that's sometimes a misconception that's out there. If we didn't have the choice program, we can just eliminate teachers in this grade or that grade. Keep in mind, in a 4th grade, we might have 2 choice students, right? We still need the teachers for all the other, whatever, how many kids that we have. Just by going down 2 students by eliminating choice is not going to save a teacher, or is not going to be able to eliminate a teacher in the budget. So then we have this huge hole. How will we fill that with $2 million? So beyond all the benefits that our choice program brings without money, the money is also an important piece as far as the revenue. The CEA program, so we have a special education program that we house inside of our high school that does not belong to us. They rent 2 classrooms from us from the high school, and that is generating $165,000 in revenue. We are anticipating that our new school performing arts will generate about $110,000 in revenue for year one. So think about that. That is just for our students that are coming into the academy in ninth grade. Eventually, then it'll be 9-10 and all the way through 9-12. So you can see where that number could potentially go, which could be a big revenue for the district. Budgeted fund balance, I mentioned the word fund balance before, so you can see we're using that amount in our 26-27 budget. Miscellaneous revenue, so things like we do charge an activity fee for students to participate in extracurricular activities or clubs. And then we've been very successful in using Municipid to sell items that we no longer need in the district. And that's a credit to our facilities department and specifically Mr. Alan Albanier, who's also a community member, who brought us onto the Municipid and takes care of that on a monthly basis. So we're generating $59,000 between those two sources of revenue. And then about $4,000 in interest on our general fund. So when we talk about state aid, so these are the different categories of state aid. So you can see where we were with school choice for 25-26, and then where we are for next year. So we did get an increase. We got an increase with some of our special education funds to help offset some of the costs, specifically of our students who require out-of-district services. We got some increase in transportation, security. So you can see in the total, we increased to $181,343 for our state aid. Obviously, if we had decreased, that would put more of an emphasis on the board to figure out where we're going to make up that money. And then preschool aid. So last year, you can see the number that we got for 25-26, and that number did go up for 26-27. So the challenges, a 2% tax levy, health benefits going up 18%. Our average salary increases for our biggest collective bargaining unit is 3.4%, right? So that's in the next year. That's predetermined. There's nothing that we can do to change that. Energy costs. So we really got hit hard, especially here because it is our least energy efficient building right now. So originally we budgeted about $145,000 for electricity, and to this date, it's probably more by now with this number. We've already paid out $180. So we had to adjust that. And obviously what's going on in our world right now, that's going to probably continue to increase. So that's something that we had to plan for. Increasing transportation costs. We all know what's going on with fuel right now, out-of-district tuition, and then we talked already about Polytech tuition. So do the math, right? When we take our health benefit premium 18%, right? That includes our medical, prescription, vision, dental. You can see what that number is for next year. Then we take our salaries at 3.4%, and then we take a tax levy increase at 2%. With that, we're in a shortfall of $875,000, right? Almost $876,000. That doesn't include increased costs in utilities, insurance for our building, any unexpected special education costs, program expansion that we would like to do, or additional transportation costs, right? So from a budgeting side, we're in the hole before we even start. So trying to figure out how are we going to close that gap based on these things that are beyond our control. The challenge. So these are the things that we don't share. You can see for 26-27. So this goes back to that equalization rate. You can see the percentage for each municipality as far as what they're contributing toward the budget. That's based on that equalization formula at the bottom. And you can see our current enrollment as of today. It's 754 students. That number does include our 97 choice students. And then ratables. So this is always a number that we want to see the arrow heading up in the positive direction. Obviously, if it's going in the negative direction, there's going to be more of an impact on each taxpayer. So the good news is the ratables have increased in all three of our municipalities, and that's a positive in reference to the budget process. So this is, as I've mentioned before, this is always a chart. You want to finish towards last instead of first. So we are fortunate between West Amwell Township, Lambertville, and Stockton Borough that we're among the lowest 4 in the county in reference to tax rates and school tax rates. So you can see where some of the other municipalities are compared to we are. So that's a big positive for us as far as the impact on our taxpayers. So what is the board spending authority? So the board, between the 2% tax levy, the current health benefit adjustment, because we had an 18% increase, and the bank cap that we haven't used from our last 3 budget cycles, we could raise, the board can make the decision to raise the budget 7.8% without a vote. Or you see the total spending authority, which is $1.6 million. All right, again, that is the total spending authority that the board went into where they could raise the budget. I'm happy to report that we are not going to 7.8% as far as an increase. All right, after a full budget review, the board is recommending a budget with an increase of 3.5%. And I will tell you, it's among the lowest proposed increases in the county. So what I've been doing is tabulating information from all of my colleagues, and this is an estimate, but this right now is what Hunterdon County is looking like with other school districts. And you can see that right now we are the orange and we are towards the bottom of this list. And you can see there's other districts that are going 4.5, 5.5, 6, 7, almost 7.5, and almost 9% in order to make ends meet. And they're still cutting, right? But because their health benefits were so high, even beyond 18%, they have no other choice other than to have massive cuts in their programming. But they are still cutting things and laying people off, unfortunately. But again, we still landed in a really good place compared to most of our other colleagues throughout the county. So what's in the budget? First of all, know that in order to get the 3.5%, we had to cut $900,000, right? So that slide that I showed before, when we were in the hole I mentioned, right? We were about $1.6 million in the hole. We had to sharpen the pencils and figure out we're going to have to reduce some staff. We're going to try to do the best we can with either retirements, right, or folks that leave and we don't replace their positions, trying to preserve as many jobs as we possibly can. So we did have to reduce 5 full-time employees, and you can see what that looks like. We had a special education teacher at the high school that's retiring that we're not going to fill. We had 3 positions, 2 at the middle school. One was a standards of support position. One is a special education position. We're not going to fill. And then we went down a section in the elementary and 3rd grade next year, where instead of having 3 sections, we're going to go 2 sections. And then we also had to eliminate a paraprofessional at the elementary school. So we had to make all those reductions along with a lot of other things, maybe from a programming side of things that we wanted to do that we're going to have to wait a little bit to do because of the funding sources that we have and trying to make this all work. We are adding the coordinator position that I mentioned before that's on our personnel agenda, and we are required to add a special education position at the elementary school based on our IEP needs, right? So it's state mandated. There's nothing we can do about that based on the level of services that our students need. We have to add a special education teacher for that building. It also maintains, which is one of the most important things on this list, our mental health supports. We all know, staff in the room knows, we're seeing more and more challenges with student mental health going all the way down to elementary school. It's important that we have those resources, and they're in this budget. We were able to keep our buses separate. We had talked about the possibility, if we had to, would we consider combining runs for middle school, high school, each and every day to and from school. That is not part of this budget. I'm happy to report that we're able to keep that separate as it is this year and continue to provide our late buses. So when we talk about back, slides in the beginning when I mentioned the board committed to providing opportunities for all students, that's a big reason why we have that. Because we found, and the board found, that we had students that were not participating in after-school activities because transportation was an issue. Now that we have this, students are participating and our rates have increased significantly. We have over 65 extracurricular and co-curricular clubs, enrichment opportunities. We have professional development to continue to focus on our student achievement. And we always provide, and we continue to provide, students who have hardships, financial hardships with internet access, so they're not at a disadvantage at home to be able to complete their schoolwork. So that is also part of this budget. We've maintained our class size. That is a big deal in our district. So you can see, even with the reduction in 3rd grade next year, you can see what our class sizes are. You can see historically what our average class sizes have been. And you can see what the DOE recommends. And we are still in great shape with our class sizes, even though we are cutting staff and reducing positions for next year. So this kind of just shows you the history of the tax levy. Obviously, we've talked about this during the referendum time where we had debt from the old referendum and then debt starting with the new referendum. The board tried to really do its best to keep it as close to 2%, which they did over a period of really 3 years because of that. But this year, obviously, was a challenge. So that's why the board is coming in at 3.5%. You know, a question was asked at the last board meeting. How has financially districts or the district reaped the benefits of the new configuration in the referendum? This slide shows it. So you can see, think about it, right? Referendum passes in 21. We started the process of reconfiguration in 23, 24. And now we're completing that process. Look at the number of staff that we had in the 22, 23 school year compared to what we have now, right? That process of reconfiguration began in 23, 24. And over that time, and over the last 8 years, we've eliminated 23 full-time positions. And the majority of that is done through attrition, right? We could have made the decision to wait till this year and had massive layoffs, what we didn't want to do. We planned this out and knew that this day was coming. So each and every year when people left or retired, we tried to do the best we possibly can, knowing that when we fully reconfigured, we probably weren't going to need those positions. So let's not hire someone and then in a year, get rid of them. Let's try to plan accordingly so that when we get to this point, when we're completely done the process, that we're in a good place. So we have eliminated a lot of positions and been able to maintain our programs. But I will say, and I've said this to the board, but we're now at the point with this budget cycle where we've kind of bottomed out, right? We've eliminated everything that we could eliminate over the last 3 or 4 years. And, you know, we're kind of where we are is where we should be. Obviously, as we continue to talk about health benefits and if things don't change, that's going to create a challenge moving forward for future budgets. But there was planning that went into that. The other thing I want to mention that I think is important is the amount of opportunity that we're providing our kids. I was thinking about this over the weekend, like how awesome was it this year that it was the first time ever that we had a middle school musical, right? And we had like 40 students that participate in that. Where those students in the past may not have had the opportunity, right? Our 5th and 6th graders never had the opportunity to do that before. Or how awesome right now is we have 39 kids participating in middle school track. 39 kids, which is like incredible, right? And I think about all these different opportunities and our numbers just looking 20 kids at middle school wrestling. We never even had a middle school wrestling program before, ever. And now this year we had 20. So like all those opportunities that our kids are having that they didn't have in the past, for me, this is great financially, but that's even more important, in my opinion, for the amount of opportunities that the kids have now that they didn't have before, which I think is awesome. This is a big help. So what this shows you is that we made that last payment in February of the old referendum debt. We've reached the peak, right? We all know when we, laid out the referendum debt for 2021, there was going to be a period of 3 years where folks were paying both debts. That has now come to an end. So now we're going on the downward trajectory, which is a big, huge positive, especially in a year when the board has to raise a budget 3.5%. And you will see that in a second. So that's a really important piece. So this is the numbers that everyone is most concerned about. Keep in mind, this factors in the debt service relief that now the old referendum is no longer there. So you will see some positives, right? You will see for Lambertville, they're actually, even though we're going up 3.5%, the overall impact on the taxpayer is going to go down $48 a year or $4.01 a month. For West Amwell, the overall impact, and remember, these are on average assessments, right? And that's the numbers at the bottom. So if you're below the average assessment or above it, it's going to vary. But for the average assessment for West Amwell, you're looking at a total annual increase of $10 or 86 cents a month. And then for Stockton, and as you know, Stockton did go through some reassessment recently. They got hit the hardest, but still $85 a year or $7.07 a month. Without that referendum debt coming off, those numbers would have been a lot higher. So we absolutely reap the benefit. So I feel confident coming to you tonight, presenting a budget that maintains all of our programs. I feel that is fiscally responsible, and for the most part, is having, the best possible impact we can have on our taxpayers based on maintaining all of our programs for our kids. When we talk about our capital reserve account, and just a reminder, and I should have said this when we were going over our terms, remember, capital reserve account is totally separate from the operating budget. You can't take money from your capital reserve account and say, gee, we have a shortfall, so instead of 3.5%, what if we only went up to 3%, but we took $1 million out of our capital reserve account and we put it in our operating account? You can't do that, right? It's apples and oranges, because you're basically artificially inflating your budget. And then what do you do next year when you don't have that $1 million in your capital reserve account, right? So they're totally separate from one another. This is our planning account where we pick off projects that we need. As I mentioned, we have projects at the high school, so we know that we're going to be creating a black box classroom for our school performing arts. We know that we're going to be creating a dance room that we're really excited about for our school performing arts. Our turf project, if you've been following along, it's getting close, right? Probably within the next 5 to 6 days, it's going to be done. I just went out there tonight at about 5:15 and was walking around checking it out. They're stitching in all the numbers and the markings for all the different sports. So we'll hopefully be opening that up and being able to utilize it in the coming weeks. We do have an annual finance payment in for the turf and our capital reserve. We desperately, if you either work here or driven through our parking lot at the high school, you know that we desperately need repairs. So we have that budgeted to get repaired this coming summer to correct those for the new school year. We're going to be doing some upgrades to our podcasting room. It's one of our most popular programs at the high school right now. So we'll be doing some upgrades to that, which, by the way, came from our kids who did a proposal and presented to us to say, hey, we really think to take this to the next level, we would love to see this in our podcasting room. So we're going to honor that. We're relocating our high school weight room because that's where our new dance room is going to be going. The new high school weight room will be going into our middle school commons, which used to be used for our middle school cafeteria, which you don't need anymore. So we'll be moving over the equipment, putting new flooring and adding a few new pieces of equipment. And then we are due to update our what's called a long range facility plan. It's something that we need to file every 5 years with the state. And ours is coming to a close. It's going to expire at the end of the summer. So this is something we'll be working with our architect on, the board finance committee and the board as a whole, and we will be presenting that and then submitting it. And these are basically all the projects over the next 5 to 7 years that we want to try to address and plan out accordingly. So you can see the total amount there for our capital reserve account. And then just an update. I know I've been providing updates, so we continue to move forward with the sale of the West Amwell School. Right now, the due diligence period expires on May 19th, 2026. Originally, it was supposed to expire on April 9th. Our buyer did exercise a clause in the contract, which expanded it another 30 business days. So now that ends on the 19th. Once the 19th comes and goes, the buyer has 45 days to close at the end of the due diligence period. And as we've mentioned before, the board has committed to using those sale proceeds to help provide relief to taxpayers from the 2021 referendum. And we will be having those conversations. We looked at some preliminary projections back in the fall when we had our first buyer. We're going to be doing that again at our May finance meeting, and eventually as a full board, we'll be discussing that, what that's going to look like, and then we'll present that to the community. And hopefully we're really going to try to do the best to close before the end of June and not roll over into our new fiscal year because it makes things complicated. But again, the buyer does have 45 days from May 19th. So in conclusion, I know that was a lot of information. The board is submitting a budget with a tax levy increase of 3.5%. It's one of the lowest among all of Hunterdon County. It maintains all of our programming, the initiatives, and all the things that we're doing, right? We're not stopping our progress. We're continuing to move forward. And obviously, as I mentioned, losing that old West Amwell referendum debt is definitely helping us with the increases long-term and specifically this year on the impact on the taxpayers. That was a lot of information, I know. Open it up first to any board members.
Before we do that,
Yeah.
I actually wanted to just say to all of the board and to admin, this year's budget was a difficult one. And I want to thank everyone for their effort in that. But I think I definitely want to thank the finance committee for this. But beyond that, each and every committee has a piece in building this. So I think that there's a lot of like budget, finance. It makes sense in your mind, but when you think about it, negotiations brings in that increase amongst our teachers' salaries. Personnel, again, we're establishing who is going to be working for us and what they're going to be doing. Policy, curriculum, we're bringing in the actual materials. So this all does feed into the final budget. So it's all of our work here, and I want to thank everybody for that. And this, even though this is a very difficult year, it's also the first year that we are setting up budget fully with a completed referendum. So we have a new operating model this year, and this budget does reflect that future. It's for our vision for the students and our vision for the district. And it also, to each and every one of your credits, is to our responsibilities to the taxpayers. So I think that we have taken this very, very seriously, and I thank you all for that, for putting in the work that went into that 20-minute presentation. So now questions, sorry.
And I mean, we've talked a lot about this budget, so I don't want it to seem like that the board has not had thorough discussions. And I just want to reiterate, that the part I thought, this is only like my second, third maybe, budget process, but this year going through the budget line by line, which was I think more than 2 hours it took us to do that, which was, I thought was very helpful, and just to give, you know, everyone the benefit of knowing that we really truly went through the budget line by line. And you know, I'm confident that we had tons of questions and a lot of discussion that we may not have here tonight, but that did happen to go into this budget.
I know that what you said we discussed were like our outcomes for healthcare providers in the future, and weighing what's really best for us in this place. Stay with this provider at this point, but continue to work as long as it's something that is comparable and does not change the what we offer to our teachers.
Correct.
Okay, that is gonna open up our first public comment of the evening, and this is very, very particularly to things presented within this budget presentation. It is not anything outside of the budget presentation. A reminder before we start public comment, we do have procedures and requirements that include standards of conduct that need to be followed by all members of the public. If a member of the public becomes disruptive, including during any period of public comment, the member of the board charged with running the public meeting shall warn, and it may result in being prevented from speaking in the future or being removed from the meeting. Disruptive conduct includes sustained inappropriate behaviors such as, but not necessarily limited to, shouting, interruption, use of profanity, or comments seen as abusive, obscene, or defamatory. Public comment is now open for the budget hearing only. Any comments? You would please state your name and
Sure.
municipality, please.
Joan Vanderveen, West Amwell Township. I came to the budget workshop and you guys talked about how you went about reviewing and resourcing the healthcare. Can you just go over that real quickly again?
Yeah, so we had a presentation by our health benefits broker who kind of shared all the different options that the board has in reference to, you know, going out and getting renewals for health benefits. There was one that we looked at that could perhaps be a cost savings to the district. However, it was a fairly new fund, and our health benefit broker recommended to the board to stick around in our fund that we're in now for one more year and kind of see how that plays out. So I think that's basically what Ronnie was talking about, that we will continue to monitor that and look at that to see, because, you know, all districts are in the same boat. if these rates continue to increase like they have, it's just not sustainable anymore. And we may have to make some changes in order to, save money, but also make sure that we're maintaining everything that our staff deserves as far as their health.
Did the deductibles change for the staff?
No, we didn't change anything with our health benefits right now. We're-
Okay, and you have a broker that worked through. all that.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, thank you.
Jessica Hardigan, West Amble. Thank you all for all that hard work. I know it probably wasn't easy to come to what you came to. I just have a suggestion for a capital reserve project. Coming to drop off every day, a sidewalk or some form of place for the kids to walk would be really helpful. There are students that do walk and it scares the daylights out of me every single morning because some of them, especially when we had all that snow, they had to walk on the street and it's scary sometimes. So just something to consider. I don't know if it's possible with permeable surfaces and all of that stuff, but just it would be helpful and less scary.
Yep, so I'll actually answer that. So we have looked at it, the conversations come up, especially between the two buildings. Because now that we share a lot of different things. So I actually had our engineer come out and take a look at it. We walked the site and we determined we absolutely could do a sidewalk. We got actually a cost estimate on that I had not shared yet with the finance, but I'll share it here. It's $100,000 about to actually connect from outside the middle school all the way up, kind of behind the field hockey field, and then all the way down up to our parking lot. So it is something that we'll be having conversations about for long range facility planning, because for our kids, for our staff, our musical kids coming back, and there's a lot of traffic back and forth. It's fine on days like today, but when we have 6 inches of snow on the ground, it's not optimal. So something we are looking at. Yep. Let me see if there's anything. There is none.
Okay, not seeing anything online and anyone in the room, let's close this period of public comment. We now need a motion to approve the 2026-2027 budget.
So move.
Bachelor. Green. Okay, this is a roll call vote.
John Bonani,
Yes.
Martha Bennett,
Yes.
Paul Figno,
Yes.
Gina Bichetti,
Yes.
Brian Keane,
Yes.
Aaron O'Leary, Jennifer Bachelor,
Yes.
Ronnie Todd Marino.
Yeah.
And Michael Scott.
Yes. Okay, with that, we need to exit the special budget hearing, correct? So can I get a motion to do so?
So moved.
John, second.
Second.
Okay. Gina, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving along. But as we do this, I do want to just also take a moment to acknowledge Mr. Suzo and Dr. Lechko today. As board docs went down, we are rolling on Plan B, and I very much appreciate that they have been able to pull this together. That said, I have not pulled it together very well in finding where we're going next. So we now need to open up to full public comment. The same rules that I just said are in application here, except now you may speak on any subject that you would like. 3 minutes are in order as well. Are there any additional comments?
I'm Luca Rosso.
I'm fielding Stromfels.
We're in 4th grade and we would like to share something with you about iReady. We and many others believe that other learning websites are more effective and fun than iReady. One reason is you could be spending the money on that you to iReady on books. We think literature would be more effective than some words on a computer. Secondly, many students report stress and anxiety over iReady testing and scores. So we started a petition to ban it. We got signatures from 52 kids and 2 adults.
Reading books is probably more effective than something on a computer, and students prefer it over iReady. And would the board rather we go on some website or read some classic literature?
Sometimes during testing, we feel stressed, and that makes us get answers wrong. And that leads us to get lessons below our level of learning that we don't need help in. And it makes some students underconfident. And it keeps doing the same lessons over and over again. We are doing the same lessons that we did at the start of the year.
To wrap it up, we students have better things to do than iReady. Therefore, we think we should eliminate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luca and Field. We appreciate your input. Are there any additional public comments?
Hello. I'm Lauren Brunstrom-Felch from Lambertville. Just to echo the students' concerns, but I wanted to express a continued desire. I've seen the board moving in some really excellent directions in terms of programming, development, equity in the district, reflected in the budget presentation. I want to encourage the curriculum committee in particular and board leadership, or district leadership and board leadership to think about more project-based education, more ways in which our students can work on executive function skill, developing their interests and abilities across different courses, across time as well. I think that schools have honestly become very boring, unfortunately, for many students across the United States. This is really kind of a dilemma that we have found ourselves in. So I just wanted to encourage that kind of creative thinking as part of the long-term planning in the district. And on a separate but somewhat related note, I also wanted to encourage the board to speak more about the gifted and talented program study and how that is shaping also decisions moving forward about resources, programmatic design initiatives, and other ways in which we want to continue to develop our district excellence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dahl. Anyone else? Anything on?
No, come
Okay, we will end that period of public comment. It is now time for our committee reports, so I am glad we're still here.
We're still here. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, so the Curriculum and Technology Committee met on April 14th. And at that committee meeting, there were no items that were discussed that are up for approval today, but there were quite a few items for discussion. First, we got a technology update from Vince. He advised the committee that cybersecurity testing has been ongoing. And also, the teachers are due for a new Dell laptops. They have been ordered. They, I believe, have arrived maybe.
Couple weeks, probably
A
another
couple
3
weeks.
weeks.
Okay, and they'll be distributed to teachers this summer. They're covered under a 3-year warranty. Also, one of the conversations that has been kind of ongoing is the possibility of whether or not parents can email their students during the school day to the students' district email addresses. Vince looked into it, and the net is that it's very challenging to make that happen. And all of the information, I don't know, he said a lot of words about email, and it all has to be updated manually and
Wall guarded, that's the word that he used.
so it doesn't seem like that's a reasonable possibility at this time. Additionally, the committee is working on committee goals for this year. They're still discussing them. There's been a lot of discussion, which is great, and we hope to have something set by next month, I think. Also, we reviewed the draft
AI guidelines that have started to be developed. We went through them. They're definitely still a work in progress. Also, we were given an update on program planning for the high school and the middle school. So there were parent nights that were held. The middle school parent night was held on March 24th. The high school parent night was held on March 27th. I believe they were pretty well attended. And then we have a standing old business item on our agenda, which is to review and discuss screen time in the district. So, for our minutes, the screen time analytics are attached to the minutes if anybody wants to look at those. One of the things that the committee discussed was noting that the sixth grade has the most log screen time in the district. And then also there's differences across grades at the elementary school level, where you see classes within the same grade having, in some instances, widely disparate amount of screen time each day. So this is something that we're going to continue to focus on and look at throughout. Thank you.
I did want to make note of the draft AI guidelines as well, only because this is the very start of that discussion. Well, actually, it's not the start of that discussion. Mr. Suso brought together a group of educational professionals to start the discussion, and they have drafted these guidelines, but the board is going to be taking all of these into consideration in its entirety. So all of us will be participating in this discussion over the coming months.
In addition to that, the administrative, so period of courses, and
Yes.
preparation for the. Sorry about that.
So just before we leave
Yes.
the topic of it, I appreciate the public comments that we just heard, because after reviewing the AI guidance document for the first time, when I had a quick look at it, I had actually written down a few things that were very much in line with the public comment, which especially around science, and just making sure that I hope that we all agree as a board that analog skills at the elementary level and making sure that our kids are good there first will lead them to be more successful in AI literacy, which I hope that I hope that that comes across to the public, that that's where we would be going. But it did bring to mind, and something that I wanted to bring up to the curriculum committee, in that I feel like, and maybe it's just going through middle school and reaching different ages, but I remember years ago that I felt like my older student, I remember that she had a thing that we did where we baked a cake with different layers, and it was representing the layers of the earth. And we did a solar system, and we did a lot of projects, and there were shadow boxes, and just really, there was a lot of hands-on for, I remember doing with my older daughter, that I don't see as much now, which I would love to bring to the curriculum committee. And one of the things that came up recently, more from a parent perspective, that like sixth grade science on Friday, we had Fun Friday, which is awesome, and it was a beautiful day, and I appreciate this. And it was, we got to do some outside time. But the way that we got there was that we completed 2 IXLs, and then we were allowed to go outside. And to me, it felt like we were rewarding the computer-based science and then getting to go outside. And I only want to bring it up as a missed opportunity where couldn't we have gone outside and done something sciencey? And then we would have been outside and doing hands-on. So I just wanted to raise that in the context of what was on the agenda. And I appreciate the public comment that I really, and also tying into gifted and talented, hands-on, the projects, all of that stuff, I think will lead us to get, up here and then create more ability to become AI literate and good with computers and doing those things. So.
And to that point, in our budget discussions, our middle school science curriculum that we are going to be talking about is certainly more hands-on, and we are moving that forward.
Yeah, but Jen, I just want to say thank you for those comments because I think they're really relevant and important to the middle school, the elementary, and also the high school. I mean, none of them should be doing all of these things, many things that can be done in a more analog fashion with real books. And real conversations with real people. Doing that is going to, I think, really help kids feel more invested in their time spent in school and more invested in their education and have better results for the district as a whole.
The only thing I will say to that, I just want to, I don't want to give the impression to the community that that's not happening now. Right, because obviously we have teachers in the room and they're here each and every day. So obviously a focus for us. And I think we hear what the board, at least the board are passionate about with this. I think it's also important to share, if you look at those analytics, we had a significant decrease from February to March in the amount of screen time. And, we've been working with our teaching staff about not utilizing screen time for fillers or rewards or things along those lines. And I think we saw a benefit of that because our minutes went down significantly. So it is a work in progress. We know it's a focus for the district. But we do know that there are great things happening in our classrooms. We want to continue to embrace that and really focus on that critical thinking, creativity, hands-on.
And certainly we want to highlight the.
Yep.
That's. But this is yet another reason why I think conversation is just started. Personnel committee.
So the Personnel Committee met via Zoom Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026. Where we discussed, and I don't know if we want to open the attachment. Yep. We discussed the following: resignations, appointments, leaves of absence, substitute teacher appointments, non-tenured positions for approval, and extracurricular appointments. And I was going to point out, as Tony mentioned just a short while ago, that includes James McManus, the new Pathways Coordinator. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I don't have any letters or anything associated with this. I like to move the following items.
Move the attachment.
Move the attachment.
A and B. Okay, did you have a second?
Second.
Okay, this is a roll call vote. I'm sorry, discussion. And to Mr. King's point, we are hiring a Pathways Coordinator on here, and having just gotten a lot of discussion about it prior to this meeting, I'm very excited to be moving this program forward. Else? Okay.
John Bonani,
Yes.
Martha Bennett,
Yes.
Paul Figno,
Yes.
Gina Pichetti,
Yes.
Brian Key,
Yes.
Aaron O'Leary, Jennifer Bachelor,
Yes.
Ronnie Paparino, and Michael Phillips.
Yes. Okay, I know the policy committee did not meet this month, however, has some large things on the horizon, so we look forward to that as Strauss ethne catches up.
There you go.
Buildings, grounds, transportation, finance, and safety committee, the lovely name.
So, we met, excuse me, April 21st. A large portion of what we discussed was already covered through our budget presentation. We reviewed that presentation for the final time. We talked about turf, the remaining work, sewing and stitching the lines for each sport. And as a reminder, I always like to hit on that the field will be used by softball, field hockey, soccer, and football. And so all of those sports are going to be marked out, and the cooling agent is going to be applied, which I wanted to also note that there is a special cooling agent that gets applied to this turf, which was an important thing that I wanted to hear about, that it helps. I forget what the numbers were, but it helps
50 degrees.
50 degrees, which was great. And the product itself, I looked at what the product is, and to be clear, it is like a natural occurring element that is actually taken out of the ocean. So it's renewable, and it's collected in a manner that's not like excavating or anything like that. It's very environmentally friendly. And it is not adding any additional chemicals or plastics or anything. And it is getting us that cooling benefit. I found that to be very important, and I was happy to hear about that. So that agent will be applied as part of the final work. We have received an insurance check payment for our LVJ flooring closeout. We talked about the sale of West Amwell, the due diligence extension, septic and some other inspections have been completed. We hope to have our May meeting, we hope to have discussions around the final closing on that. In transportation, we have a new bus expected to be ready in July. And then on safety, Tony completed a 5-day district safety training, and updates that will need to be made as part of that plan will look to be implemented over the summer. And then the rest of the meeting is just the usual bills lists. We have some contracts on the agenda tonight with descriptions there. Yeah, and all of the items, travel and expenses, field trips, are all to be moved. So I
I want
will.
to mention the Kiwanis grant will be down.
Oh, yeah, that's on here too, right? Yes. So that, oh God, I didn't write that in my notes. I'm so sorry. But yeah, we received a grant, that we will be putting in a separate special account, to provide scholarships for, seniors, that was provided by the Kiwanis Club. So that's very good news for us. We like to see, donations like that coming in to the district. Thank you to the Kiwanis. Yeah, and that'll about do it. So we would be moving A through P.
We have a second. Any discussion? And I did want to thank you for looking up that cooling agent. I know that there was a lot of concern about the turf from some community members, and I felt like that was going the extra mile. So that information hit me very nicely. I was appreciative of that. Without any further discussion, shall we vote?
Brian Key,
Yes.
Aaron O'Leary, Jennifer Bachelor,
Yes.
John Bonani,
Yes.
Martha Bennett,
Yes.
Paul Bufigno,
Yes.
Peter Fischetti,
Yes.
Lonnie Camerino,
Yes.
and Michael Stone.
Yes. School and community.
School meeting met on April 21st. We reviewed, the first that we reviewed was the new internet enabled device policy FAQ. There's a first draft that's to explain how we will be implementing the ban on internet enabled devices. In schools beginning in the 26-27 school year. A lot of the sections have to be held because we're still waiting additional guidance on the current education. We then looked at the climate and culture surveys. That's a survey that we put out every year to get feedback from students and staff and parents regarding areas of strength and areas for improvement in the district. We looked at last year's survey and talked about adding some questions regarding the homework policy that was implemented this year and current student use of AI. We reviewed a few press releases, drafts on explaining the upcoming Pathways program and then also the community classroom program. Those will be put out in the next couple of months with some additional information after the hire of the Pathways for the year. And then we also talked about turf fundraising. So when we initially talked about putting in the turf, one of the things that was recommended from other school districts that had done it would be to raise some funds that would be in an account for the future if the turf needed to be replaced. So we're going to be rolling out a fundraising campaign that gives local businesses the opportunity to advertise with live streaming of currently a football, which I did not know, even though I have kids in marching band. And then now that we'll have other sports on the turf, we'll be able to live stream other sports, and so local businesses can have ads through that and also through field signage. That's really going to be different sponsorship levels, and that will be going out in the summer. Nothing.
You. Any discussion on any of that? Moving on to some routine information items, we do need to accept, we've had one HIB that was presented to us last month that we need to accept, and then fire and safety drills. This is simply a voice vote, so can I get? Ronnie and Brian, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's the possibility of abstention, because people should always have the opportunity to abstain, especially if they're part of the.
And now that brings us to our last period of public comment. So again, same rules apply. If you would like to address the board on any subject, please feel free to take the podium in the room.
Joan Vanderveen, West Emerald. I just got a text from David Beaumont of West Emerald, and apparently the online comment is not, and the alternate is not working.
Yeah, he just emailed me, so I'm gonna read it in a second.
Okay, great. Yeah, so that would be great. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else?
All right.
Mr. Bowman had some problems accessing, so.
So Dave Beaumont, West Amwell. My apologies for not being able to share my comments in person tonight, but very grateful for the opportunity to do so via online. Thanks for another informative and comprehensive budget presentation. Much appreciated. I want to respond to a recent correspondence posted for tonight's board meeting as it relates to the budget you're approving tonight. The author of the correspondence rightfully notes that the enrollment of local students for our three communities has decreased by 200+% since 2018. However, the use of the adjective appalling, coupled with prior opinions, seems to imply the reduction is due to mass exodus of local students who instead are pursuing other educational alternatives. However, the author has not considered the fact that according to New Jersey State Health Assessment data, the number of annual reported births in all three towns has fluctuated but trended downward since as long ago as 2005. Running the numbers, this has by itself contributed to 200+ fewer potential local children available to attend our public schools today. It should be also noted that the author's enrollment numbers do not include our out-of-district or choice students. For example, total enrolled students reported in 25-26 Franklin budget was 819, which by the way is more than the prior 4 years. Why is that important? The author continues with a claim that budgets are skyrocketing while other student population has crashed, implying incorrectly that lower enrollment is not resulting in reasonable inflationary budget increases. However, I submit that the total appropriation for the 2018-19 operations budget was $23 million, taking into account 31.5% inflation since 2018. The same appropriations would have ballooned to $30 million in 26-27 budget. Instead, the proposed appropriation is $26 million. That suggests to me that the district has in fact been diligently managing and containing rising costs. So my kudos and thanks to the district in proposing this budget, and with it, an appreciation for your efforts in minimizing the impact on our local property tax. For West Amwell Township at least, I anticipate our overall tax obligation will decrease by $59,000 in 2026. This should result in a decrease in school tax for any homeowner whose assessment didn't increase more than an average of 5%. Thank you for your time.
So is my understanding that our Google form isn't working?
Public comment form? Could be perhaps. I don't know.
When I checked it earlier, it wasn't working.
Make sure that it's open.
I mean, if you click on our website, message that pops up and try to access it.
Because normally we do receive things.
Correct.
And then if it's fine.
Yep.
That's something that certain.
Try it on the website, pop up.
Not really.
You go to the website. It'll pop up. You want to copy it, it's like- That link right there, it's the button. Yeah. It was working.
Okay, with that said, Was there anything else on the form?
There was none.
Okay, anyone else in the room? Let us close this period of public comment. We do have need to go into executive session briefly. We do not anticipate taking any action coming out of executive session. So can I get a motion to enter executive? Running, second. Jen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.